Hello everyone, viewers. We think we know the story of the devil, a tale of pure evil, of a monstrous serpent whispering temptations from the shadows. But that is the end of the story, and the beginning is far more tragic, far more brilliant. Before there was the abyss, there was a throne room bathed in unimaginable light. Before the Prince of Darkness, there was the morning star. What if I told you the greatest rebellion in cosmic history wasn't born from hate, but from a love so fierce, so possessive, it sought to protect God from himself? This is the story not of a monster, but of a son. The story of Lucifer and his fall from grace. In the timeless dawn, before time itself had a name, there was heaven. Not a place of clouds and harps, but a dimension. At the heart of it all was the throne of God. A source of power so immense, so absolute, that its very presence was the engine of all reality. And from this source came the angels, beings forged from the divine will, each a unique facet of God's infinite mind. They were the seraphim who burned with love, the cherubim who guarded divine knowledge, and the archangels, the great commanders and messengers of heaven, and the first and most perfect of all creations. His wings were not made of feather, but of pure, captured dawn. His voice was the harmony to which all other angels tuned their songs. When he moved, galaxies swirled in his wake. He was the chief of the archangels, the viceroy of heaven, the one who stood closest to the throne. He didn't just reflect God's light, he amplified it, casting it into the farthest corners of existence. It was an all-consuming fire, a love of perfect admiration for perfect creation. He saw the universe as a flawless symphony, with God as the composer and himself as the lead conductor. Everything had its place, its purpose, its perfect, unchangeable harmony. And for eons, it was so Lucifer walked beside his brothers, Michael and Gabriel. They were a trinity of purpose. Gabriel, the messenger, God's voice, a being of perfect truth and revelation. And Lucifer, the illuminator, God's mind, a being of perfect reason and understanding. He understood the architecture of creation, the divine mathematics that held stars in place. He believed he understood the mind of God better than any other. His pride was not yet a sin, it was simply a statement of fact. He was the brightest, and God was about to introduce a new chaotic variable into his perfect equation. Then came the sixth day of a new project, a small blue-green world teeming with life. And on that world, God did something unprecedented. He did not forge a being from starlight or celestial fire. He knelt, took clay and dust, and breathed his own essence into it. He created man, Adam. And then Eve, to Lucifer, watching, he saw these creatures, fragile, mortal, made of dirt. They were weak, driven by primitive needs, their minds a confusing storm of emotion and flawed logic. They were imperfect. And yet, the gaze of the Almighty Father was fixed upon them with an intensity of love that Lucifer had never witnessed before. A love that felt different, more personal, more tender. "My Father," he might have said, his voice the sound of ringing crystal, "I do not understand this creation. They are finite. They will break. They are made of the soil they walk upon, while we are made of your very thought. Why this fascination with imperfection?" God's response, whether in words or pure understanding, was simple. They had something the angels did not, the capacity to choose, to love him not out of inherent programming and proximity. To Lucifer, this was not a beautiful concept. It was a flaw in the system, a risk, a foolish gamble that compromised the perfection of creation. His perfect symphony now had a jarring, discordant note, a note called humanity. He began to speak with his fellow angels, his brothers and sisters. At first, it wasn't a call to rebellion, but a discourse of pure reason. He planted seeds of doubt, they stumble in the dark, they are naked and ignorant, and the Father intends for them to inherit all of this. For us, who have sung his praises since the first star was lit, to serve them, to guide and protect these animals. Is this the reward for our eternal devotion, to become nursemaids to a lesser species? He spoke of justice, of order, of the sanctity of their angelic nature. He argued that God's love for humanity was a form of divine madness, a momentary lapse in an otherwise perfect judgment. And because he was Lucifer, the most charismatic and brilliant of all angels, many listened. A third of the heavenly host began to look at humanity, not with angelic curiosity, but with Lucifer's disdain. They saw an insult to their own perfect existence. The true breaking point, the event that turned a prophecy whispered through the halls of heaven. A future would come when God himself would become one of them. The Son would be born of human flesh, live among them, and die for them. And the decree was absolute, all of heaven. Every angel, every seraph, every archangel must bow before the Son, before God incarnate in this frail, human form. For Michael, this was a moment of supreme joy. But for Lucifer, it was the ultimate betrayal. To bow, to bend the knee to a being of flesh and blood, to the very symbol of the imperfection that was ruining his Father's perfect universe. His mind, once a beacon of divine reason, now twisted that reason into a weapon. His love for God, once pure, became possessive and jealous. He loved the God of pristine, ordered creation. He could not, would not. He stood before the assembly of angels, his light burning with a cold, white intensity. The air in heaven crackled with tension. He asks us to worship dust. Lucifer's voice boomed, no longer a melody but a declaration. He asks us to kneel to our own replacements. I have stood by his side since the beginning. I have carried his light to the darkest corners of the void. My love, never. I love the Father too much to stand by and watch him diminish his own glory. My knee will bend for him, and him alone, not for his pathetic human creation. Then came the three words that shattered eternity, three words that started a war, non serviam. I will not serve. In that moment a choice was made. Every angel in heaven had to decide, to stand with Michael, and the lines were drawn, brother against brother, light against light. The great symphony of heaven fell silent, replaced by the sound of swords being drawn from sheaths of light. If you find this cosmic history as fascinating as we do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the lore that shaped our world. Your support helps us explore these epic tales that echo through our own lives. The war in heaven was not a clash of wills that sent shockwaves through all of creation. Angelic songs became war cries. Prayers became battle commands. The celestial spheres groaned under the strain as legions of light, once united in praise, now met in terrible combat. Lucifer was a terrifying general. His brilliant mind, which once mapped the stars, now devised strategies of war. His rebellious angels fueled by they were beautiful and terrible, their light flickering with the dark fire of rebellion. On the other side stood Michael. His heart was heavy, for he was fighting his own kin, his own brother. But his resolve was absolute. He was the instrument of God's will. His loyalty was his shield, his faith his sword. He led the 2/3 of heaven that remained loyal, their light burning with pure, unwavering. A personal duel between the two greatest archangels. Michael and Lucifer met in the highest stratum of heaven, the very steps of the throne room, now a battlefield. "Brother, stop this," Michael pleaded, his voice filled with anguish. "It is not too late. Lay down your arms, repent." Lucifer laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "Repent for what? For loving our Father too much to see him defiled, for defending our own. That is why I am superior. That is why I must win." Their swords clashed, and every strike was like a new sun exploding into existence. Lucifer was the more skilled, the more brilliant warrior. He fought with passion and fury, but Michael fought with something stronger. He fought with the authority of God. He was not fighting for himself. He was a conduit for a power. With every parry, with every blow, Michael was not just defending heaven. He was defending the very concept of divine love and free will. He was defending the future of humanity. In the final, devastating exchange, Lucifer, in his hubris, believed he had won. He saw an opening and lunged, his spear of light aimed at Michael's heart. But Michael did not move to block it. He simply held up his sword, a conduit of the power of humility, of service, of absolute faith. The power crashed into Lucifer, not as a physical blow, but as a metaphysical reality. A judgment. He was weighed and he was found wanting. His own pride, his own light became his undoing. The light within him, no longer connected to its divine source, began to collapse inward, to curdle and corrupt. He was defeated. Not by Michael's strength. "There is no place for you here anymore." he declared, his voice ringing with the finality of a divine sentence. And with that, the fall began. It was not a quick descent. It was a slow, agonizing expulsion from grace. Lucifer, the morning star, was cast from the highest heaven. He tumbled down through the celestial realms he once ruled. He saw the choirs of angels turn away from him, their faces a mixture. The glorious light that was his signature bled away, replaced by a consuming darkness. His beautiful form twisted and warped, becoming a reflection of the pride and hatred that now filled his soul. His name was stripped from him. He was no longer Lucifer, the light-bringer. In the shadows of his fall, a new name was forged: Satan, the adversary, the accuser. He fell past It was the ultimate torment, to be stripped of his purpose, to see the beauty of his Father's work, and to know he could never be a part of it again. He was alone. His fall ended in the unformed void, the deep darkness that existed outside the ordered realms of heaven. Chaos, nothingness. But he was not destroyed. His immortal spirit, though twisted, remained, and in that desolate emptiness he made a new choice. If he could not rule, he twisted the formless void into a mockery of heaven, a realm of darkness instead of light, of pain instead of joy, of despair instead of hope. This became hell, not a prison created for him by God, but a kingdom he forged for himself, a monument to his eternal defiance, and his fallen angels who shared his fate became his demons, twisted, monstrous parodies of their former glorious selves, specifically towards that small blue-green world. Earth, the cause of all his misery, his motivation had changed. The jealous, possessive love he had for God was gone, burned away in the fires of his fall. It was replaced by a cold, calculated hatred for God's new beloveds, humanity. His new purpose was no longer to protect God's perfection, but to prove God's grand experiment was a failure. He would tempt them, deceive them, lead them into darkness, and then throw their failures in God's face. "See," he would whisper to the cosmos, "I was right. They are nothing but dust, and they chose me over you." The serpent in the garden was not his first act of malice, but the opening salvo in an eternal war for the souls of mankind. The morning star was gone forever. In his place stood the Prince of Darkness, the eternal adversary whose entire existence was now dedicated to dragging humanity down into the same darkness that had consumed him. The story of Lucifer is more than a simple tale of good versus evil. It's a profound cosmic tragedy, a story about how the brightest light can cast the darkest shadow. His sin wasn't just pride. It was a failure of love. He saw God's love for humanity not as an expansion of divine grace, but as a personal rejection. His inability to change, to adapt his understanding of love and devotion, is what led to his damnation. He was so certain in his own righteousness, so convinced of his own superior logic, that he chose eternal war over a moment of humility. He chose to be a king in a kingdom of ash rather than a servant in a kingdom of light. In every choice to place our own ego above compassion, in every moment we let jealousy poison our love, in every time we refuse to forgive because our own pride feels more important, a small echo of Lucifer's fall resonates within us. The temptation to believe that our understanding is absolute, that our way is the only right way, is the same trap that ensnared the morning star. But here is the crucial difference. The very thing that we can fall and we can get back up. We can be lost in darkness and we can choose to seek the light. Lucifer's story isn't just a warning about pride, it is a powerful testament to the gift he was denied, the gift of a second chance, the gift of redemption. It reminds us that true strength is found not in unbending pride, but in the humility to learn, to grow, and to love even when we don't fully understand.